Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com New Jersey Invitational, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller, alongside Kurt Spiess. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Longtime Lands aficionado in Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
But you just got done crushing the Modern portion of day one, 4-0ing with this blue-white flash deck. And we got to talk about Spell Queller. Spell Queller is here. You're playing 4 copies of this card. You're also running 4 copies of Spellskite in the main deck. This deck's got a lot of crazy stuff going on. How'd you kind of come to this?
Well, when I saw Spell Queller at first, I was like, it's pretty good in Standard, but it seems like a card that would be really, really good in like Eternal formats. So I was just kind of like, throwing a couple ideas around. I originally had a Delver of Secrets deck with Spell Quellers in it that was pretty good when it got an aggressive draw, but like was kind of weak to bolts and snapcasters and stuff like that. And so thought about it in a couple other decks, didn't really like the Spirits deck, but I just really wanted to try it in like some kind of control shell, but also something that can attack really well. And so that kind of brought me to Restoration Angel as like the card to pair with it. That's that's kind of what the deck's trying to do, is just try to like get the flash creatures going, attack for a little bit at a time, and then late game, before they know it, they're dead because you got a Cryptic to tap their guys and then a Colonnade to finish it off.
Right, yeah. All your creatures have flash outside of Spellskite. So you've got Spell Queller, Restoration Angel, Snapcaster Mage, and Vendilion Click, this great kind of base. And then you have the Fairies-esque stuff between Cryptic Command, Sexual Vision, Spell Snare, some counter spells, and of course your removal, none of which lets them gain life. So, you've got what you're doing correct.
Yeah,
well, except for Condemn.
Just Condemn. And Condemn is actually sometimes really nice to give them life, especially against the Suicide Zoo deck with Death Shadow. I've done that a couple times. If they have 2 Death Shadows, you can condemn a huge one, kill the other one in the process. So.
Yeah, got them coming and going with that card. Now we got to talk about the interactions here. Of course, Spell Queller, great. Modern's a format where most of the spells are very cheap.
Yeah.
But you get to come down and Spell Queller something, and then even the upgrade with like a Restoration Angel.
Yeah.
Talk about those interactions.
Yeah, Restoration Angel is just really awesome in this deck. Just, it's a flash threat, but in addition, you can blink your Spellskites after you redirect something. Like if they try to path one of your big creatures, I've redirected it, then still with that on the stack, I'll blink it and save my Spellskite. And with Spell Queller, it just works really well with this deck. Like everything's flash except for Ancestral Vision and Spellskite, so you can pretty much always keep mana open for it. Even if your opponent doesn't play into it, that kind of works for you rather than against you. And it just punishes like the really aggressive decks in Modern, like Jund, where they just try to jam their best spells turn 2, 3, and 4. And then the Spellskites are there to kind of protect the Spell Quellers. Like
full 4 Spellskite in the main deck.
Yeah, like I originally had Wall of Omens in here, but I don't really care about drawing the card too much. It's nice with Restoration Angel, but really you just want the early body to block random creatures, and then being able to protect your larger drops in addition to just stopping your opponent from playing any kind of pump spell or anything like that just made me really like the card for the format.
Yeah, with the rise of Suicide Zoo, or Death Shadow Aggro as we call it, along with Infect, even Green-White Hexproof, you just got a bunch of just kind of collateral damage with this card that you don't really expect a full 4 of in the main deck.
Yeah, it helps a lot of matchups that could otherwise be kind of rough. Supreme Verdict wasn't a card I was really interested in playing right now because it is really good against a few decks, but that's about it. So yeah, it lets you play 1-for-1 really well.
Yeah. Of course, you got Colonnade as a nice finisher here. But the sideboard, you don't really want a ton of Supreme Verdicts, but they have their spot in the sideboard. Yeah,
I've got 3, and that's pretty much strictly for about 3 different matchups. Merfolk, Affinity, and then like the Collected Company decks.
Right, so the Swarm style decks.
Yeah, exactly. Like anything that's kind of swarming you. And I normally board out my Spell Quellers when I do that and kind of transform into a blue-white control deck. That's why I also have a Gideon Juror in the sideboard as well to kind of lend with that control plan. I've already got the Ancestral Visions main, so like you can transform into a different style tap-out blue-white deck really easily.
Right, yeah, you get them game 1 with this tempo strategy, then you have a ton of good sideboard cards, even Engineered Explosives, another Condemn here that allows you to become the control deck against all these like Swarm decks, or kind of, the company decks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you also got a Celestial Purge here, and of course your Rest in Peace for your sideboard, Dredge Hate.
Yeah, I had Grafdigger's Cage, but I was a little bit afraid that they were going to overload for cards to destroy hate cards, which was definitely correct because Dredge has not been doing too well today. It's kind of getting hated out at this point, but but Rest in Peace lets you still, you know, even if they have an answer to it, you still get one good use out of it. So I went with that instead. And it's also got a couple other matchups that are pretty decent. Against the Knight of the Reliquary, like Coral Helm deck with like Voice of Resurgence and stuff, or even like the Eldritch Evolution decks with like Kitchen Finks and Voice of Resurgence and stuff, you can board in Rest in Peace and kind of shut off a big part of their decks.
Yeah. Dispel here, just a great counter spell in all kinds of matchups. And then of course Stony Silence, good against Affinity, Tron.
Yeah. The Dispels are just kind of a couple extra cards against control. Your control matchup is actually your best matchup with this deck. Their threats are all Sorcery Speed, Nahiri, Planeswalkers, what have you. But everything in this is flash. You have a little bit more counter spells than they do. And I'm not playing Mana Leak or Remands. And once you get to the late game, it's really easy to play around both of those.
What's the best thing you've Spell Queller today?
The best use I've had with Spell Queller is when I got into top deck mode. I flashed it in originally against Affinity to throw it in front of a creature. And then he went to play a Cranial Plating, and I Restoration Nadeled my Spell Queller and countered the plating, and that was pretty awesome. That kind of swung the game.
That's not bad.
No.
All right, so you're 4-0. You know, what do you like about the deck? Have you looked or thought about any changes or where this deck kind of goes from here?
One thing that I didn't really have time to explore that I would like to is splashing red just strictly for Lightning Bolt. Maybe a couple other random cards, but just like a really efficient removal spell. Right now I'm playing one Sunlance and one Condemn in my main deck, which aren't necessarily the most, you know, the best cards, but you need something with Snapcaster.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta have cheap answers to Wild Nakados and whatever. So I think Lightning Bolt could improve this deck. Other than that, not really. I mean, maybe some sideboard options. I did have Sword of Feast and Famine in here at one point, and it was pretty good when it was good, but kind of clunky. So maybe that could find a spot back in the deck.
All right, lastly, you know, you think of a blue-white deck like this that could kind of have some power. No Geist to St. Draft.
Nah, I don't have Geist. It's definitely a good card and was something that I considered, but it's really good in the matchups that my deck's already awesome against. Like the Spell Quellers, the Spellskites, like having 4 Spellskite makes the other control decks and Johns it makes it kind of hard for them because it makes their Lightning Bolts not very efficient, and it trumps a lot of their good cards. So it wasn't something that I felt like I needed. I wanted a couple Dispels, but that was pretty much it. So other than that, I didn't really worry about control.
All right, well the deck looks great. You're playing Spell Queller in Standard and Modern, so you seem to be in pretty good shape.
I got to make sure I remember to switch them out before next round.
All right, we'll remind you. Thanks for joining me here on the sideboard.
Yeah, man.
Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in New Jersey.